Let's go. We made it to the Eagles home opener, and it's time to run this thing back. In this video, I'll get you set for everything you need to know ahead of the matchup against Dallas. Like one weapon Philly is about to unleash, plus a few other mismatches the Birds can exploit, and an official update on starters at cornerback and safety. Also the latest on the weather, which could play a factor, and since it's the opener, you knew there'd be a giveaway, but this one is crazy. Which, speaking of, turns out that Howie Roseman tried to trade for Micah Parsons after all. Yeah, I know. So let's talk about it. But first, let's run it. What's up, guys? It's Dallas week and it's game day. So do me a favor, drop a like on this video, because if we can get 4,000 likes, I'm going to give away 2 Eagles tickets to any game during the regular season. And speaking of hype, Underdog just leveled up. You can now combine your favorite player picks and picks without leaving the app. I'm pretty hyped for the games this weekend. Might have to cook up a spicy entry. Sign up today with code PHILLYSPECIAL and play $5 to get $50 in fantasy bonus funds. Team picks, player picks, all on Underdog. Not sure if you realize this, but the Philadelphia Eagles and Dallas Cowboys have met in Week 1 4 times in the past. Something Dallas fans love to bring up recently on social media, since the Cowboys' record is actually 3-1 in those games. Yet the problem is, the last time this did happen was 25 years ago, and the whole world getting to witness the Pickle Juice game. Refresher for you, that was a game in 2000 in which Philly beat the brakes off Dallas 41-14. Yeah, flat out embarrassed the boys at home, and quite honestly was a very core memory for me. Thanks to a suffocating defense that piled up 5 sacks and 2 interceptions while imposing its will in just about every phase. Meanwhile, the ground game was even more unstoppable, as Deuce Staley ran for over 200 yards on 26 carries, resulting in the Birds nearly doubling up the time of possession and doing more than that on the scoreboard. So yeah, when a Dallas fan says they're 3-1 in Week 1 games versus Philly, ask them when the last time was that they actually won one of those games against the Eagles. Heads up there, the correct answer would be 1976.
It's been 84 years.
You can't deny it's been an incredibly long time. Neither can they. Of course, it's been forever since they've even been relevant. But given the makeup of the teams right now, honestly, and especially the Eagles being locked in, we're a whole lot closer to getting a repeat of what happened in the Pickle Juice game than anything that Jerry's clowns think they got coming. Of course, you're right. You never want to overlook an opponent, but like I said, the team has mentioned collectively that everyone is locked in and ready to show out. Plus, when you take into account that Dallas had one of the worst run defenses in the league last year in terms of yards allowed, touchdowns allowed, yards per carry, and defensive efficiency, it doesn't bode well going up against Saquon, aka the reigning offensive player of the year, who's got the best offensive line and naturally the most efficient rushing offense. Oh, by the way, Dallas's defensive coordinator Matt Eberflus actually had a worse run defense with Chicago last season at 31st. So take that and add in that Dallas lost their best run defender in DeMarcus Lawrence and traded for linebacker Kenneth Murray, who, in case you weren't aware, grades out as one of the worst defenders against the run in the entire league. And sure, yeah, having said that, it's hard to imagine anything changes for Dallas.
Oh no! We suck again!
What can you say? Dallas sucks, and the Eagles are trending in the exact opposite direction. Which is probably one of the many reasons why Jerry Jones had no motivation at all to trade Micah Parsons to Howie Roseman. Despite Adam Schefter reporting that the Eagles were in fact a team that made a strong push to acquire Parsons over the summer. Yeah, pretty crazy, not gonna lie, also a little bit shocking just to consider what it might have taken to get Parsons. Yet at the same time, and as we all know, it's Howie, and the man's a psycho. Anyway, it didn't happen, so feel free to speculate who or what Philly might have been willing to give up if you want, but ultimately, there's still more than enough talent on the Birds, and they're headed in the right direction. Heck, you even got Kyle Brandt going as far to pick Jalen Hurts as his MVP next season. Not sure if you knew this, but Kyle did correctly pick Josh Allen last season. Of course, we're talking about 65 years since the last Eagles player won NFL MVP, so the odds might not be in QB1's favor. Still though, I wouldn't count it out, since teammates have noticed a difference in Jalen this season, saying he's a lot more open, coaching up teammates, being more vocal, and ultimately showing a mindset to raise the level of play of every single person around him. Meanwhile, you got the Saquon documentary that was just announced that premieres on Prime Video on October 9th, Cooper DeJean getting his own cereal, and the Eagles being featured in just about every promo you can think of. For instance, thanks to Underdog, one of the official season-long sponsors of the channel, you can win any Eagles jersey of your choice. All you gotta do is make sure you're subscribed to the channel, like this video, and then go comment on who you think the first touchdown score in the game will be. Reminder, of course, that does have to be the first touchdown score, which is for either team, whoever scores first. However, it gets better, because if this video gets 4,000 likes, then that giveaway of any Eagles jersey of your choice actually turns into any Eagles game of your choice and 2 tickets to that. So go ahead, make your prediction on who scores first, and then come hang out during the live stream where I'll be drawing for one person who got their pick correct to win tickets or a jersey at the end of the game. Again, thanks to the season-long sponsor Underdog as well for this. Just make sure to use code PHILLYSPECIAL or scan the QR code, make your $5 entry, and then get $50 in bonus funds. Okay, it's time for my Underdog picks. We do these every week, so here we go. Week 1. I'm going with Jahan Dotson higher than 6.5 receiving yards, Moro Ojomo to get at least 1 sack, and then, you have to pick at least one player on the opposing team, so we'll go with Cowboys kicker Brandon Aubrey to make at least 2 field goals. Remember, all the reports from Eagles training camp and preseason where Dotson and Hurts have been on a different level. And J-Dot told me personally that the difference 1 year has made has been wild. Heck, we saw some of that late last season as he started to get more involved in the offense. So seriously, do yourself a favor and take advantage of the market severely undervaluing wide receiver 3. Which is the same thing I would say for Moro Ojomo. I mean, come on, there was not a more dominant defensive lineman throughout all of camp. Leading to a team survey when asked about who would be the breakout candidate of the upcoming season, and everyone said Moro Ojomo by a mile. Granted, there's lots of guys that could have a very big game on the D-line, so I wouldn't, disagree with you if you said someone else, and especially if that's Jalen Carter, well, you definitely have a point. Especially since he's got some extra bulletin board material with Cowboys rookie Tyler Booker. Thanks to Dallas's first-round pick naming the Breadman as the guy he's most looking forward to competing against in the NFL. Yet if that wasn't enough, you then had Cowboys offensive coordinator Clayton Adams piling on this week or earlier this week saying he gets goosebumps thinking about Booker heading into that matchup.
Well, sometimes dreams can turn into nightmares, Lou.
When is the NFL going to learn? Like every time that you add more fuel, especially for a guy like JC, it just comes back to bite him. Seriously, you remember what he did against LA last year in the playoffs when they started talking. Yet this is Dallas we're talking about, aka one of the shakiest offensive lines in the league entering the season. Now sure, it's week 1 and maybe they can get things figured out, but I think it's still at least worth mentioning that this is a team that has very little in-game chemistry. For example, right guard Tyler Booker, left tackle Tyler Guyton, and left guard Tyler Smith have yet to play a single snap together. Of course, I'd anticipate the Cowboys' passing game to be okay through the air, yet it should turn into one-dimensional fairly quickly, since the weakness of multiple guys on the O-line has been in run blocking. And not to mention the stable of backs in Javonte Williams and Miles Sanders and Jaden Blue don't necessarily strike fear into anyone, plus you got Miles Sanders and Javonte Williams who were dealing with some injuries coming into it. Same thing for Jaden Blue. It's not a major concern in that area, which is why I say this is an Eagles defense that should assert its dominance very early on. Granted, it's understandable to have some PTSD about slow starts or how last season went, but Fangio admittedly learned a lot from last season and is confident that won't happen again.
I hope not. I don't foresee that. I think that's overplayed a little bit what happened those first 4 weeks, but no, I think we're ready to go because we still have a lot of guys that were here last year and guys that we expect to be improved from last year. The first game last year, we probably did too much as coaches schematically, which somewhat was my fault. Gave up too many big plays because of things we weren't playing correctly. It was more so than execution. It was execution, but we shouldn't have been playing them that early. I had too much confidence in what I thought they knew in that first game.
Look, the line is 8.5 for a reason. It's not like the Birds have to go out there and run some crazy exotic packages. Sure, some trickery and disguises are important, but as long as they stick to their stuff, it should be a foregone conclusion. Just like it wasn't a surprise at all to hear Jeff McClain reveal that Sidney Brown will start at safety and Adoree Jackson will start at cornerback for the Eagles. Now, I know it would have been cool to see Drew Mukuba out there. He is fully healthy, by the way, with no designations. But Sidney Brown's going to get the start. Potentially, we see Drew Mukuba in some various packages, but not a whole lot of reps. Still, though, when it comes to who Quinyon Mitchell or Cooper DeJean are guarding, there's a whole lot of confidence. Thus, the reason Vic Fangio admitted there's a definite possibility that we see Q travel to match up with Ceedee wherever he goes. Having said that, if Dallas can isolate Ceedee on Adoree or keep picking on him with George Pickens, then it could bring up some trouble. Ultimately, though, the Cowboys are the ones who definitely have a whole lot bigger problems to deal with. Because despite Trevon Diggs being back at corner and having Deron Bland as well, if anything happens or Diggs can't play the entire game, the Cowboys' backup corners are all unavailable. I mean, you got Kalen Carson, who's on IR after hyperextending his knee in training camp, Siobhan Ravel, who will miss at least the first 4 games of the season on the non-football injury list, and Josh Butler, who tore his ACL in 2024 and begins the 2025 season on the PUP list. Which, in case you're wondering what that means for Dallas, they claim 2 guys off waivers in Trequez Bridges and Reddy Stewart as their main backups. And honestly, you tell me, how is that group supposed to deal with A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Jahan Dotson, Dallas Goedert?
You lose that battle. You lose that battle 9 times out of 10.
Look, that's also another reason I'm rolling with Jahan Dotson, because the further down the depth chart you go, the bigger this mismatch gets. At the same time, don't worry, offensive coordinator Kevin Patullo said he'll be cognizant of the touches for the stars on offense.
If you got guys like we do, just to make sure they get in the flow of the game, and sometimes they know the flow can kind of go a little bit differently and they got to feel it. But I think they know going in what the plan is. So if the plan is a certain way and it has to pivot or move, they know that they were like included in the plan. So at some point it'll pivot back.
All right, I'll just say it because I was asked several times if there's any way that Dallas can hang with the Eagles, where's the area? And I think it's special teams. And okay, I suppose the weather could play a factor as well, since the latest report suggests a couple evening showers and a thunderstorm tonight. Yet obviously both teams have to deal with it, and the Eagles clearly have the better ground game. Which is why I say special teams could be the great equalizer and is one of the many things our very own Eagles writer Anthony DiBona will have his eyes on.
One of the biggest weaknesses and kind of my biggest concern coming out of preseason, and I know almost all the starters didn't play, so it's kind of hard to take things away from that, but a lot of the guys that are going to be contributing on special teams were playing in those games. So if you did watch those games, you saw a lot of missed tackles by the Eagles special teams unit and Michael Clay's unit overall, and that's kind of concerning, especially heading into this matchup against a first-team All-Pro returner in Kevontae Turpin that the Cowboys have, where last season he returned both a kickoff and a punt for touchdowns last season. So if the Eagles do slip up and those mistakes from the preseason kind of carry over into the regular season and Michael Clay's unit is still a little sloppy, that could be kind of concerning to watch for.
Yeah, we did see a decent amount of missed tackles. Hopefully that's not the case. They drill that fundamentals, everything else. Vic Fangio talking about, the squad learning lessons from last year and maybe getting them in some looks or designs that maybe they weren't ready for, not necessarily the same sense of fundamentals, but I'm with you there. Yes, hopefully we do not see that. I'm curious, though, because you mentioned, I think before we were recording here, a couple other areas that maybe not as much on people's radar, or perhaps just to keep an eye out for of other concerns.
So one of the ones that I feel like might be actually a little bit of a hot topic in Philadelphia right now is just their preparedness or like the readiness level of Sidney Brown and Adoree Jackson as starters in the secondary, because it's kind of been the question all offseason throughout training camp is like, are they going to make another move there? Is Drew Mukuba going to be ready? Is Jakorian Bennett going to win the job? But now it does look like both Sidney Brown and Adoree Jackson are going to start. And against a healthy Dak Prescott with CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens, like, can these guys hold up in this spot? I tend to lean towards, yes, I think they'll be able to do so and kind of have a higher floor than many people might expect. But if they do kind of mess up and things get a little ugly, it'll be interesting to see what Christian Parker and Vic Fangio do there.
Looking forward to definitely the matchup. I think I was talking about this on a previous video, but it is interesting. We talk about like CeeDee Lamb, George Pickens, even thinking about last year, there were some good receivers, there were some good passing units, but even like the Cincinnati game did not have T. Higgins. There was Jamar Chase, of course. But this is probably, curious to get your thoughts on this, but probably the most talented wide receiver, at least just two. You could say maybe a core of receivers may be more talented, but at least in terms of just a tandem, the most talented that this Fangio defense will have faced so far?
Yeah, I think that's pretty fair to say. And like you mentioned, both CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens have the ability to kind of take over a game, right? If they're given those opportunities, especially CeeDee Lamb with just how high of a volume target that he gets from Dak Prescott. He's a guy that's going to get targeted possibly like 12 to 15 times a game. If he catches 10 of those, he can make plays after the catch. He can catch the deep ball. And then George Pickens is obviously a big play waiting to happen. It's just a matter of kind of keeping him involved and keeping him engaged during the game. So we'll see how Dallas kind of balances that. But that duo with a healthy Dak Prescott throwing in the ball could be kind of scary.
Hopefully they remain in check. That's what all Eagles fans. Now that topic is definitely one that's top of mind. As you say, Sidney Brown, Adoree Jackson. It's been day in and day out, week in and week out. Who's going to be there? It is very likely Jeff McClain. Kind of confirming that report. We all thought similar along those lines. But the last potential concern that you have on your radar, maybe not as much up to speed for some people, or just interesting from that note. It sounds like Landon Dickerson.
Yeah, so, Landon Dickerson quietly, kind of struggled last season, and I know he had the accolades and, he played so, the offensive line played so well as a whole, but during the regular season, he did allow 5 sacks, which is kind of a lot for him, given he was the highest paid guard at that time. Maybe he still is. I don't remember the exact numbers, but you would kind of expect him to play a little bit better than that. But going into this game, he had, obviously, the knee surgery. Now he has the back injury that he's dealing with, but maybe he's fully recovered from, maybe he's not, who knows? But the Cowboys kind of have these two guys along the interior defensive line in Osa Odigizua and now Kenny Clark, where these guards are going to be tested. The interior of Philadelphia's offensive line is going to be tested. And if Landon Dickerson is not fully healthy or he has some of those struggles that he showed at times during the regular season last year, that could be trouble for Philadelphia's offense because obviously if they allow a rush down the middle, that kind of ruins everything and kind of they don't have the time to develop the play action game or get Saquon Barkley going or Jalen Hurts doesn't have the time back there. So that's something that I'll be monitoring for sure on Thursday night.
He's healthy enough to play, but that also doesn't necessarily mean that he's 100%. I know that there's no designation. Technically, there's no designation, but I mean, the dude's coming off of meniscus surgery and the back injury that he had to leave him out for more practice, but he's a full practice, full go. Landon Dickerson will be out there. It's better than not, but it will be interesting, like you say. Keep an eye out there. Another part here, and we do this all throughout the season, OGs of the channel know this, but for people that are just checking it out or somehow coming through, is we like to keep an eye on different players, and Anthony usually has 2 to 3 guys every game that we do the game previews. So let's start, I guess, obviously with the Eagles. 2 to 3 guys, players that you're looking out for Philly.
So one quick guy that I won't even have to elaborate too much on because we just talked about him is Adoree Jackson because he seems to be that outside corner opposite of Quinyon Mitchell. So obviously, as a veteran, has a lot of starts under his belt, but can he hold up against a George Pickens and a Ceedee Lamb if he is matched up against them? That'll be interesting to see. And another guy on the defensive side of the ball is a guy that I've been hyping up all along in multiple live streams and videos leading up to this point is first-round pick Jahan Campbell. I feel like this could be his coming out party and kind of national TV. Everybody's like, how in the world did the NFL allow Jahan Campbell to fall to the Eagles to play next to Zach Bond? I feel like he has the athleticism and the size and the skill set just make that impact immediately and kind of make a name for himself in week 1. And then lastly, a guy that kind of slips under the radar. He's had a good offseason and a good training camp by all records from the reporters that have been there, but Will Shipley. And we saw him break out a couple runs late in the season last year in relief of Saquon Barkley or Kenny Gainwell late in games. Now it seems like he's definitely going to be RB2 in Philadelphia. So I could see the Eagles kind of gashing the Cowboys on the ground with Saquon Barkley and then him coming out of the game and Will Shipley breaking a 40, 50-yard rush and kind of getting either a touchdown or just a big play to keep the ball rolling. So that's something I would watch for as well.
I like that. We had a decent amount of Kenny Gainwell, topics or comments for, spelling, and then he would go in there and have one of those long runs or something like that. But Will Shipley, lots of increased in the hype, the momentum. Love the clips and sound bites of Jalen Hurts even going over there, giving him some tips of, routes and having different option routes that he's had with Jalen Hurts, building that chemistry, which, anybody who knows anything, if you're getting the attention from Jalen Hurts in that way, it's definitely a positive sign for you. So I can't wait. I'm very excited, as everybody is, for this first game. Now with Jalen Hurts, it's the constant topic, the constant theme, whether it's the offseason, during the regular season, whenever it is. MVP predictions, some people are going out there. Kyle Brandt surprisingly picks Jalen Hurts as his MVP candidate. Not a lot of others that would say that, but what say you? Can Jalen Hurts, could he actually win MVP?
Yeah, I mean, I've said it on this show multiple times. I wrote about it, tweeted about it. I think this is going to be kind of the year of Jalen Hurts, right? I think they're going to reduce Saquon Barkley's role a little bit. I think he'll still be kind of like the focal point of the offense, the guy that they lean on when it really matters most. But I think Jalen Hurts, he shows up when the lights are the brightest. And I think now this year with Kevin Patullo, a guy that I know it hasn't been the OC, but he's worked with Jalen Hurts for several years now. They kind of have a good rapport with each other. I think they're on the same page. So I think now that he has that Super Bowl on the shelf and that Super Bowl MVP trophy, maybe he's reporters have said they kind of see a different attitude with Jalen Hurts. He's always been confident, but now he kind of seems more comfortable in his own skin, and he's making these changes behind scenes, saying what plays he likes, what plays he doesn't. And I think they're going to push the ball down the field a little bit more, which should lead to more inflated numbers for Jalen Hurts. I wrote about taking his overs pretty much in every season long the category that's available on Underdog and these other sports books that are out there. So I think Jalen Hurts could absolutely win MVP. I mean, just 2 years ago, he was the favorite before he got hurt, right? So if everything goes according to plan and he stays healthy, everybody else stays healthy, I don't see why he couldn't be in that conversation.
Let's go. It's worth a flyer. That's all we're saying. As far as those picks and predictions, I love that. Switching gears though, obviously we mentioned some of the Eagles to keep an eye out for. Dallas, 2 to 3 guys, kind of keep an eye out for potential game changers or elements there.
So similar to kind of the Adoree Jackson or the Landon Dickerson topic for the Eagles, Tyler Guyton's also dealing with an injury where he had a knee procedure. Many thought he wouldn't even be able to play in this game. Now it looks like he's going to be full go, but same thing with Landon Dickerson. Like, how full go is full go? Like he's going to be battling through something and giving the toughness and the edge that both Nolan Smith and like Jalyx Hunt play with. They're going to be testing this guy and seeing how ready that knee is. So watching him kind of protect Dak Prescott's blind side, I'm definitely going to be watching that throughout the game. And then flipping over to the other side of the ball, I mentioned him earlier as far as who Landon Dickerson will be blocking, but Osa Odigizua, he had 60 total pressures last year, not a crazy amount of sacks, but he can rush the quarterback. And we kind of saw when that interior pressure can get to Jalen Hurts, that can throw off his timing a little bit, flush him out of the pocket. Maybe he's taking a weird sack or running out of bounds when he could have just threw it away. So if that happens early, that could be something that kind of wreaks or wrecks the game for Philadelphia. And then lastly, another guy that we touched on before is just Kevontae Turpin. He's that all-pro returner that has the game-breaking speed. Even on offense, he's kind of that gadgety player where they can hand him the ball off or give him a quick screen, and he can take it to the house anytime he touches the ball. So if the Eagles aren't kind of polished on defense or on special teams and making tackles and rallying to the ball, Turpin is a guy that can kind of give them little nightmares and fits throughout the game.
Stay the fundamentals. Make the tackles. We want to see it. Week 1, there may be some rust. It usually is during the regular season. I will say, though, on the note of Tyler Guyton, and a lot of people have already seen this by now. If you haven't, go to the Eagles channel and watch the hype video. You will enjoy it. Trust me. You're doing yourself a favor. But with Tyler Guyton and the injury, and he was suspect at times, whether it was penalties, giving up sacks last year, regardless. On top of that, and then hearing the clip from Nolan Smith, which you shared on Twitter, follow at DiBona NFL, and you would have already seen this by now too. There's just some things, and this is not a surprise to people, regular followers, but it just had me ready to run through a brick wall. I know that's kind of the saying that goes, but it's like you hear that for Nolan Smith, you hear that's his story, his vibes, his just the Philly way and mindset, and it's kind of like, all right, I needed this. I needed this right before the season started, because we're ready to go. Jalyx Hunt, Nolan Smith, whoever it is matched up. If maybe they rotate sides more than they did last year, it was kind of set on their predominant sides, but should have some opportunities there. So I'm just saying for our guys, at least some decent chances, hopefully to throw Dak Prescott off and come up with some sacks. Could be raining a little bit as well, so not the worst mixture there.
Yeah, and I feel like we've been the biggest proponents and supporters of both Nolan Smith for you and Jalyx Hunt for me. Like, those are our guys that we've stamped for several years now, right? So it's going to be cool to kind of see them get this opportunity to be starters, especially in a game like this where they should have plenty of opportunities to rush the passer, because I think the Cowboys are going to throw the ball a ton. So it's going to be really fun to see what Nolan Smith can do. And that attitude is something that he's kind of alluded to before, where he's like, hey, I should be working the graveyard shift right now. Like, I'm not supposed to be here. And he's just not getting too lost in the moment. He's embracing where he is, where his feet are. Like, he's ready to work, and just his mentality is, he was built. I tweeted it out. He was made to play in Philadelphia. So just to see his attitude, I'm still surprised that he wasn't named a captain. I thought he would have got that nod, but maybe next year. But yeah, Nolan Smith kind of seems like the heart and soul of that defense after Brandon Graham left.
Love it. It's it's a no-brainer. But as far as injury report, though, to keep everyone up to date real quickly, not a bunch of major changes. We shared this in the last couple of videos, kind of already went over it here as far as this goes. Tyler Guyton, as you mentioned, for Dallas. Trevon Diggs, full participants, should play, will play, according to Adam Schefter and others. The only one, I believe, is Perrion Winfrey, who did not practice this week, so would be held out. But really, I mean, about as healthy as they could anticipate or expect. And then same thing for Philly. Everybody full participants, and Jalen Carter, Landon Dickerson, Josh Uche, and who's the other one that I'm forgetting? There's a fourth. I'm drawing a blank on the name.
Jalen Carter?
I think, did I say? I don't know. Maybe I didn't say Jalen. Yeah, with all four were healthy. The only one that is not is Tanner McKee. So he's out, which means Sam Howell is the backup in that situation. As we said before, it's a good thing to have, at least as a backup for a QB3 that now is a QB2. All intents and purposes, we don't see him on, tonight's game. But it's like, if you have to, it's never the worst thing, I suppose.
Yeah, I think you could do a lot worse, and I mentioned before, than Sam Howell. The interesting thing is going to be, Are they going to elevate Kyle McCord from the practice squad and serve as that emergency third quarterback? I know the rules get all funky with that. I'm still have a headache just thinking about what's going to happen there. But
Yeah.
I mean, my guess is they'll probably just keep Sam Howell and leave Kyle McCord in the practice squad because, I mean, if you're getting to the third quarterback at that point, you might as well just throw Tanner McKee out there with one hand. Like, is it that much worse than Kyle McCord? I don't know, but I think they'll be fine.
Yes.
Yeah, I think they'll be fine either way. And like you mentioned, the biggest thing was that Landon Dickerson, Drew Mukuba, those guys are healthy. Joshua Uche, Jalen Carter, they're healthy. So everybody else is pretty much full go. So the Eagles and Cowboys both couldn't have asked for it. There's going to be no excuses this time around. I know over the years, either Dak Prescott was out, Jalen Hurts was out, this guy was out. Like everybody's pretty much at full health as best as possible at this point. So no excuses. It's going to be fun to see how it plays out.
Drew Mukuba, that's who it was. I said Jalen Carter twice, so thank you. Drew Mukuba was the other full participant. So maybe he gets a few plays in there. Does not sound like he's starting, as we mentioned a second ago. Okay, it's time. People know what it's time for. Feel free to scan the QR code, as I mentioned multiple times in the video. Use code Philly Special. $5 play gets you $50 in bonus credit. And also, if you go ahead and drop your comment, you probably have already done it if you reach this point in the video. But if you haven't, you're missing out. Go ahead and drop a comment now. Who is your first touchdown scorer? Because if you get it correct, I'm going to spin during the live stream, assuming the Eagles win, but that's, I feel like, kind of a fair certainty, that you have a chance at the end of the game to win any jersey of your choice. And if this video gets 4,000 likes, then that turns into 2 Eagles tickets to any game, which is crazy, but courtesy of Underdog. So thank you to that. Use code Philly Special. Now, we mentioned it every single game just about last year, and we did go on a run of 4, if I'm not mistaken, 4 games in a row where we correctly picked. We're getting 2 picks here, so it's a little bit unfair. But still, between the 2 of us, one of us was accurate for 4 weeks in a row. First touchdown score. Are you going with the Eagles? Are you going with the Cowboys score? Who's the first touchdown?
I mean, I'm going maybe really off the board here, maybe a little bit too wild.
Okay.
But this is a guy that we've been hyping up all offseason. He a guest of the Philly Special show. He should have had the first touchdown in the Super Bowl. I'm going to go with Jahan Dotson to score the first touchdown.
Come
think he could draw kind of the Kyer Elam matchup, who's kind of Dallas's third corner at this point. And if you look at his stats last year, he allowed 21 receptions on 27 targets in limited time. That's a 77.8% completion percentage, which is just absurd. And at the practice that we attended, Jalen Hurts was throwing the ball to Jahan Dotson. He's got a lot of work with him this offseason. In the red zone, I feel like crossing across the back of the end zone or just across the middle of the field. I think he could be a target that Jalen Hurts actually looks towards and kind of catch Dallas off guard. And like I said, I think Jahan Dotson might get that first touchdown.
Mine's probably a little bit chalkier in the sense I think it's a tush push. I think it ends up being Jalen Hurts. So I will say Jalen Hurts. But honestly, I kind of be more excited if it's Jahan Dotson there because I think he's gonna have a decent game. So the line of the yards and everything else. But if it's a touchdown too, a first score, it's like, all right, here we go. Well, all the things that were said, it's absolutely confirmed. There is some chemistry. But good. We've picked 2 Eagles because sometimes it's picking the opposing team, and hopefully there's not the sluggish start like it was last year, where it was what week 9 before they scored in the first quarter or something like that. So let's get on the board early. First quarter score, Jahan Dotson. Hopefully that happens. Score predictions, though, for the game. We've shared it in the article, of course, so people that have seen that or are curious can get some more insights at thephillyspecialshow.com. But to reiterate, final score projection.
So I'm going with Eagles 27, Cowboys 20. I don't know. I don't think it'll be as close to the final score might make it seem. I know everybody's well aware that Dak Prescott's kind of like a garbage time merchant where he puts up those empty stats kind of later in the game. So maybe it's like 27-13 late, and then the Cowboys get a touchdown to make it look a little bit closer than it actually was. But I think the Eagles win 27-20 in Philadelphia to get that W in week 1.
Come on. Eagles win. I got the same thing as well. We're almost identical in score projections too, which was before we spoke to each other. It wasn't like hey, here's the, getting it close in proximity. But it's interesting. So I have 28-20. I was interested or talking myself into is it 28-20? Is it 28-17? But officially 28-20, very similar to, as you're saying there. I think it'll be 28-13 and then a backdoor cover. The score will look closer, but I think that Eagles should be able to control the game. It should be fine, especially if there's a little bit more rain that's in play, which is certainly what the weather forecast looks like. So then, maybe not as great passing game, gets to be grounded pound, and that is certainly not where Dallas has advantages in. I mean, they don't have advantages in a lot of areas, but definitely not in that one. So we'll take it. But either way, the Eagles should be fine. As always, appreciate you guys. Make sure to like. If this is 4,000 likes, again, they're going to be 2 Eagles tickets. But drop the comment now. First touchdown scorer, come hang out during the stream, and we'll spin for it. As soon as the Eagles win and wrap up at the end of the stream, we'll see you there. Make sure to subscribe. And as always, go Birds.
Like I should feel like I should go.